Welcome to the Unofficial Steelers Podcast, the podcast so unofficial it doesn't have a home. Here's your host, from In Hindsight, Nathan Heitz. From Steelers Nation Australia, Mark Davison. And from State of the Steelers, Daniel J. Here we go.
What is going on, everybody in the chat, everybody tuning in? It's another episode of the Unofficial Steelers Podcast here on YouTube with Daniel J. from State of the Steelers and myself from In Hindsight. Going to be back behind the mic, guys. Doing this on a Wednesday. We had to move it an extra day. But good to see you all in the chat. Hopefully you all doing good. Jared Devil, George, Steelers fan, Kels the Wells, everybody that we've seen in the chat, everybody tuning in. Thank you all so much for your support. Daniel, welcome back on the channel, man. How's the beginning of the week been going?
It's been going well, man. It's a Steelers victory, so we can't really complain, right?
You're able to celebrate Victory Monday.
Exactly. The Steelers won. They go in, take care of business against the Vegas Raiders, and are now tied for first. And if you're looking at tiebreakers, if the playoffs started today, the Steelers are number 2.
Season.
Yeah, exactly. The Steelers would be number 2 and first place in the AFC North. So you can't really complain about that right now.
Nope.
Yeah, I know some, some steps forward, maybe not as many steps as many of us would like, but some steps forward. And there's room for optimism. The team's only going to get better, and from all indications, every game they've gotten better. And so I think it's a good thing that they're playing a couple of teams that'll get them through this build-up time. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Last year it took them into the bye, right? Once they got to the bye, then the Steelers started coming together. Yeah, the problem is by the time they got there, they had played a bunch of the elite teams, and their schedule was like 2-6.
Yeah,
this year, if they can get to the bye, 4-1, and still learning and finally get there, then come out after the bye a more defined team, man, that gives us our Steelers a way better option, or way better opportunity to make some noise going into possibly going into the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. They have a big opportunity to go 4-1 into the bye. It's definitely possible. Guys, we're going to be talking about really the Sunday night game, kind of really overall thoughts on it from both sides of the ball, and what we liked, what we didn't like. Probably won't really get too much into the game this Sunday because we'll aim to do a show, preview show for that on Sunday. But yeah, I felt like the game on Sunday, not even as a fan, I felt it was overall a good Sunday night football game to have. It wasn't like one of the, crazy games or great, but I thought it was an overall good game just for a normal viewer to watch. Thought it was just kind of fun, and it stayed close. It stayed kind of competitive. And we know there's some things at the end of the game that, the referees' Raider jerseys had to start showing and all that kind of stuff like that. But it still felt good. Obviously, getting another win feels good, and I think that some of the things that got better compared to the last couple weeks probably made a lot of us feel good about it. Not saying that it's where certain things need to be, but I think just in terms of different growth, improvement, things like that, it was definitely encouraging, and you would just hope for it to continue to go in the right direction. So, I did pick the Raiders to win, but I picked it with my head. I had a feeling the Steelers were going to win this game, and they were going to play better. Couldn't play much worse, right? But I had a feeling that they were going to play better, but I just went with my head, just given maybe certain things. But it still feels good. They're in a good position right now. And I said going into this game that these next 2 at least are good opportunities to try to get some confidence back on offense and to try to figure out a little bit more maybe of what works versus what doesn't work. Trying to maybe exploit some of the Raiders' weaknesses. I thought we saw a little bit of that. Trying maybe some different things that you weren't really able to try in the first 2 games, and I think we saw a little bit more things on offense than we saw the first 2 games. So, um,
Yeah.
Daniel, do you feel overall pretty good in terms of where the team's at in the third? It's still early. It's not even a fourth of the season yet. But in terms of week 3, terms of the third game of the year, where they're at, you feel pretty good about where they're at and continual progression moving forward. How do you feel about the state of the team?
So right now, that's like a two-part answer for me. Compared to the way they played against, offensively and defensively, compared to the way they played against the 49ers, and then the next game against the Browns, and now this game, I'm glad where they're at. I'm happy
Mhm.
with their progression. Of course, I'd like it to be a little bit faster and a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Consistent, because I think that's a
Mhm.
big problem with this offense and defense is the consistency aspect on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
But as overall, like the expectations that I had coming into this year, not even including the preseason hype, just going into the season, the Steelers had gone 7-2 in the last, few games of the last year. I thought that this was going to be a good opportunity that the Steelers were going to be able to continue in that upward trajectory. I didn't really see some regression being an issue or being a thing.
Mhm.
Now, there's some context to that. This is an offensive line that's been manipulated and moved for, a couple of times over the last few years. There's not been a lot of consistency this year. You can say that 4 out of the 5 guys are returning. But it's weird because in certain cases, especially in the running game, it seems like the Steelers went back a little bit when it came to Kevin Dotson not on the team as far as the running game goes, going with Isaac Seumalo. But I'm hoping that aspect will change chemistry and things moving forward. But so it's a two-part answer for me. It's
Mhm.
yes, compared to where they've been these recent years. I'm still a little bit disappointed as to where they're at compared to what I expected them to be coming into this year. And
Mhm.
I'm thinking it's going to even out. They're going to eventually get to that point where I expected them to be. I just hope it's sooner than later. You know what I mean? But you talked about your predictions. Let's
Yeah.
go over some of the predictions that we had last week. I have them
Yeah.
written down.
Okay.
Um,
All right. Here we go.
so on the over unders,
Uh-huh.
we've said Kenny touchdowns 1.5. Both of us said under. We were both wrong on that. Kenny
Both
threw
wrong
two
on that.
TDs.
Lost some cash.
Yep. Kenny Pickett passing yards 255. We both said under. He had 235, so we got that one right.
1 for 2.
Kenny Pickett interceptions 1.5. We both said under. He had none.
Yep.
Kenny
2 for
sacks,
3.
or how many times he got sacked? 2.5. I said over. You said under. You got that right. He was only sacked one time.
Yep.
Rushing yards 55. We both said over. Najee came in with 65.
Okay.
Najee touchdowns, and I said under. You said over, and he did not get a touchdown.
Yep.
Pickens touchdowns. I went. It was 0.5. I said over. You said under. He didn't have any touchdowns, so you got that one. Forced turnovers on the opposing team 2.5. I said over. You said under. Garoppolo had 3 interceptions.
Yep.
TJ Watt sacks 2.5. We both said over. I don't think I know he got to him. Let me see what it says. How many times? He got to him twice, man. So we technically we were wrong. But
Yep.
that was an impressive game because up until this game, the Raiders hadn't allowed a sack,
Mhm.
and TJ getting 2 on his own. I think he was with 4. It was a great game.
Yep. 100%.
Joey Porter snaps at defense. We had 21. I said over. You said under. He ended up with like 27, I believe. So
Uh-huh.
it was over. Total points at 43, and we both said under. So yeah, it's under 43. I think it came in at 41.
Yeah. It was right on the dot.
Yeah, and then obviously you said Raiders 20-17. I said Steelers 16-13. I win the prediction, and if this is price of right rules, I also, well, I guess you
Yep.
get the score that's kind of closer to what it was. But man, that's what we did last week.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
we
not
predicted.
bad. Not bad. I think I missed like 4 out of those. So I think I come in with maybe like a 70%
Yeah.
on that. So,
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Maybe I should pick the Steelers to freaking lose every week.
Yeah, that I think everybody would agree.
Oh man. Yeah, dude. It was there were definitely some predictions in there that weren't even close in terms of what's up, Ron? What's up, bro? Appreciate you tuning in. Aquatic, what's up? Definitely some predictions I was way off on, even like ones that I was even thinking about before the game and all that kind of jazz. But I think one of the ones that we are probably most happy about getting wrong, Daniel, was Kenny finally throwing a couple touchdowns.
Oh yeah.
And congratulations to him finally having a game where he has a multi-touchdown game. Daniel, would you say that was maybe Kenny's best game as a Steeler so far? Or no?
I mean, statistically, yes, touchdowns, but I think I still like. I mean, those are just the end of the games. I like the Raiders game last year. He poised. Even in Baltimore, he seemed a little bit more poised, a little bit more calm in the pocket. Had scored points at the end when it mattered. But this game, taking that, him running into some trouble a couple of times, I think it's up there. It's definitely up there. 2 touchdowns, 235 yards, no interceptions, and only sacked 1 time against Max Crosby and the Raiders, who were missing some pieces on defense. No Jones. I would say, yeah, it's definitely the best game of the season. But it's getting better. It's up there with his best games of last season. So I think that he's basically, whatever he did regress, he's already back to that level. I think that's where he's at right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I think that I'm gonna say that it was just because, like, he's like there's still we know there's still things there. They're still leaving some of the pockets. They're still missing some guys, stuff like that. But I don't know. To me, I felt like the 4 quarters, like last year, it's like he had like it was more so like, okay, good quarter, bad quarter, good quarter, so quarter, bad quarter, right? Good quarter. I felt like with this game, like even though like they didn't like light up the stat sheet with like dropping all these points, I felt like with this game, that there was still production each quarter. Like it wasn't like, I'm not going to say it was a complete game on offense. It wasn't. There were obviously still things that still need to get smoothed out for sure. But I think in terms of, I felt like each quarter there was production there on offense. I feel like each
Right.
quarter that there was at least some things there, and however many drives that you found more production. You found a little bit more of moving the chains, not finding yourself in bad third down predicaments. I felt that was there was better opportunity there than what we saw the last 2. Felt like there's a little bit better play design there than what we saw in the last 2 games. I even think our running backs played pretty well. They didn't light up the stat sheet, but I think when you look at like Najee, I think he played okay, given the fact he didn't have a ton of space. But I think for what was there, and then like when you look at some of the numbers in terms of his expected versus non-expected terms of like his yardage and stuff like that, he surpassed the expected yards when there wasn't really expected to be any. We know the run blocking has been a problem, but I think that there were some different things in there, man. There was a little bit more middle of the field. There was a really nice halfback screen pass to Jaylen Warren where they executed that really well. That looked really good. So there were a handful of things that they got Freiermuth involved a couple more times they did last game. That nice play action pass in the end zone, sending Calvin Austin right up the seam, right down the middle of the field, and hitting that was fantastic. So it's not at the point where everybody wants it. I don't think it's going to be there this year. But I said that if their offense can just be something where you take a little bit of a step forward than last year, you can stay a competitive team 100%. But this game to me was a complete 180 than what we saw the last two. Just it felt more fluid each quarter. It felt like the offense still had some of its 3 and outs, still had a punt, stuff like that. There were still some things like, you probably could have maybe did a little bit more there. But I felt there was more fluid. I felt it was more fluid. I felt that there were more productive drives. There were more some opportunities, even though that they didn't come up in the way of points, that there was some more opportunity there given than what there was the last two. Still the offensive line, I don't know. The offensive line still looked a little crappy to me. But overall, I think executing some things differently, it felt just a little more fresh than what we saw the last 2 games, especially with some of the play calls, some of the designs, some of the things that worked versus what didn't work the last 2. And I think Kenny just looked better overall, just confidence-wise, and just more precise with some of the throws that need to be made. He made. He was more pinpoint on that stuff that was just kind of there for him to take. And he probably had the best throw of his career to Calvin Austin. So, and that was, he hung in there. He took a little bit of a shot. He hung in there in the pocket, waited for it to develop, didn't get the happy feet on that play, which was great. We know the things he still needs to get better at, still the zone reading, still leaving the pocket early, feeling pressure when it's not really quite there all the time. Right. Being able to, still being able to read the field better, still being able to hit certain guys that are there, hitting them and not getting too anxious and not just dumping it off, right, or throwing the ball away like we had. Those are still things that need to get better. But the good thing is, Daniel, those are things that he can do better and get better at. Those aren't situations where you look at some quarterbacks and they have limitations, but they can't overcome that. Those are things that can get better. But I think it was overall his best game, not even just from a number standpoint, but to me, I felt from an overall offense standpoint, there was more opportunity. It was flowing pretty well throughout the game. Each quarter, I thought, had its positives, and they have another week where they can add on top of that. But Kenny, to me, looked a lot of a different quarterback than what he was the first 2 games. And overall, Daniel, I was still pretty pleased with the results, especially coming off the last 2 that were really ugly and being able to kind of turn around and have a lot more positive out of this. Sure, there's still your problems, there's still your things. I feel like those are just really going to be there a lot throughout the year regardless. But being able to come back like that after 2 putrid weeks and kind of look like a new offense a little bit, more of a rejuvenated offense, more confident offense, doing some different things that you didn't do the first 2 weeks that worked, targeting middle of the field, utilizing Kenny more in open space, getting him on the run a little bit more, or throwing on the run a little bit more, which he's pretty good at. Taking at least a couple shots down the field. I thought it was a little refreshing, and I think there's definitely some good positives to take away from, and hopefully they can just add on to it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is another step, like, just continue going back, while you were talking, and I was kind of putting in together, the steps that they've made. Going back to your question, like, was this Kenny Pickett's best game? I'm gonna say the Cincinnati game was, because that was 3 quarters of football. The third quarter, the offense just went inept again. Right now, this year you had the San Francisco, the offense good for a drive. Then you had the Cleveland Browns game. They were all right for the second quarter towards the end, and they were okay in the beginning of the third quarter. So just maybe a little bit over a quarter. And in this game, because even in the Cleveland game, the Steelers were down, and going into the fourth quarter, end up coming back and winning with having negative yards gained by the offense. So going into this game, I thought that the first quarter started off kind of the same as every game that we've had so far. And then they had the touchdown pass to Calvin Austin. That was with, I think it was just like a minute left in the first quarter or something like that. So it was right towards the tail end. And then they had consecutive scoring drives in the second and third quarter. So the fourth quarter, the Steelers didn't do much. They were protecting a lead. So, you know, it can be kind of like, were they trying to protect the lead, or did they just kind of revert back to what they were before? But in my opinion, they've made steps. So in this game here, I should anticipate at least 3 quarters of solid football. I think that would, right. I mean, we would hope for 4, but it's just, this is the pattern that I'm seeing right now. It's one drive, a little bit over a quarter, a little bit over 2 quarters. Now let's get it into like that 4 range where, Kenny Pickett's doing, he's cooking.
Yeah. And it's another good opportunity. And it's not even just like, oh, well, because it's like a bad team or anything like that. Like, I don't even think the Texans, like, I don't really think they've played really all that bad this year. It's just an opportunity in a sense where you don't have this superior defense or anything like that you have to go up against. You have a defense you can work at. You have a defense that you can exploit. You have a defense that you can still put points up against. So at least being able to find your ground, being able to find your identity through these 2 games. And then once you start facing some of these teams that have some better defenses, then okay, you're like, okay, we know who we are and we know what we're going to do. And there's going to have to be some times, you have to switch some stuff up because defenses are going to know what you're trying to do, blah, blah, blah. But you can at least get some, especially after these first 2 games, you can at least just get yourself settled in more and start to find things that everybody likes that are working, that you can try to utilize.
Don't you think they should have had that done though?
Of course they should have. 100%.
They have a game plan that they have set up since the summer that they've been working at. They should have those bread and butter plays that work. And Aquatic Life asks, what are your concerns about this team right now? For me, it's more a lot offensively. Defensively, are there problems? Yes, but I knew they were going to have growing pains early on in the season because of the new players in the different positions that they're in. Right, you have Patrick Peterson is new, KZ is a first-time starter for the Steelers. You have Terrell Edmonds gone, Cam Sutton is gone, and we just acquired Desmond King. So a lot of new pieces there. And then the middle linebacker room was completely overhauled. So there was going to be some growing pains. You can't really simulate 60 minutes of NFL football in training camp and in preseason or in the off season, because most of the time in the summer, you can't work out that way. Right. So the first time they get pads on is in training camp, which is 3 weeks before the first preseason game. So, in that time frame, they have 1 quarter to a half of football and 3 preseason games. And, they're not really going up against a scheme or anything, right? So it's pretty vanilla. And so you can't really simulate the NFL game speed of the regular season in that. And so it was going to take some time. But for me, offensively, that's where my concern is. I'm concerned with the offensive line. Isaac Seumalo, he's a guy that the Steelers gave the bag to. And when it comes to the running game, he's not doing well. And I'm concerned with Mason Cole. I think that he's regressed quite a bit. And I'm concerned. The tackles, I think they've done a capable job. They're all right. Can they be better? 100%. There's better. I would say they're probably in the middle, like in the mediocre range. So, how much better can they get? I don't know. What are your concerns with this team right now?
I'm pretty much on the same page with you, man. The thing on the defense side of the ball, I think we've been giving up a lot of yards. Even though like defensively we've been getting to the quarterback, we've been getting some turnovers. The last 2 games we haven't given up a lot of points, but we're giving up a lot of yards, and that's something that's got to get cleaned up. Devontae Adams was the Raiders' whole entire offense and just ate us alive. But it was probably either going to be him or Josh Jacobs, and it ended up being Devontae Adams. So it is what it is. Devontae's a beast, but the fact that he alone was the guy that was carving our entire defense, I mean, come on. I think our defense has too much talent to be giving up as the amount of yardage that it's been giving up. So that's something that's got to be cleaned up a lot of it in the secondary. But I think that it can. I think that we have the guys back there that can do that. Offensively is definitely the main concerns. The offensive line has not been what us, or I'm sure the coaches, have wanted it to be. I think Dan Moore has honestly been mediocre at best. I've never been somebody that has really been like big on him, but somebody that I've kind of viewed as is that still can make a career in the league, probably just not as an every week tackle. I think Okorafor has been pretty underwhelming. Seumalo has just not gotten it going, especially in run blocking, like what you said, Mason Cole. But and even with Mason Cole, it doesn't surprise me, Daniel. I knew this was a Band-Aid.
Mhm.
Mason Cole was a Band-Aid for this offensive line last year. And he has one more year on his deal. I would not be surprised if Mason Cole's somebody that just does not pick it up this year. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to find a new center next year. James Daniels, I still like a lot. I think that he's had a lot more ups than he has downs in his career. But the offensive line just needs to really gel. And it's kind of similar to last year, where they really started getting going as the season went on. Yeah, you were told Mason Cole was top 10. Would love to know by who.
By Mason Cole's mom.
Yeah, maybe by his family.
By his parents.
Yeah, by his parents, by his brother. Yeah, I don't know. But the offensive line is a big concern. For sure. Just in the sense, I feel like Kenny he's just been getting pressured a lot too, I feel like. And they just haven't been able to open up stuff for Najee either. Like, and that's what I mean too, by like Jaylen Warren probably fits the team better in the sense of just his burst and his speed, because I feel like the line just can't hold up enough consistently to be able to create those gaps for Najee to try to break through. But I'd probably put the line at number 1. I think we have a really good offensive core between our backs and between our receivers and stuff like that. I really do. Kenny, we know there's still things that we all want to see him get better at, but I think at least this past weekend was something that there's things to take away from and be encouraged about, be happy about, that we saw, and got to put that together. Matt Canada's still on the outs. I thought he put together a pretty good game in general. But we got to see more, man. We got to see more. And that's the thing with this offense. Even though the offense got better this week, even though they put up points, they had productive drives, and stuff like that, you got to take it with a grain of salt. They got to keep putting it together each week. And they're still going to have, there's still going to be games that they have duds. They're still that's still going to be a given 100%. Because I don't think that they'll be where they won't even think that coming the year. I just thought that they'd be a little better. But there's things, I feel like the offense has more of the things that they can control to get better than they don't.
Right.
And
what are your thoughts on the offensive coordinator situation? You mentioned that he had a better game. Do you think that you said that you just want to see more. Can you emphasize on what exactly you want to see more of?
I want to see more. I want to see more, like in terms of like what we saw the Steelers like do more offensively, middle of the field play, getting Jaylen Warren more in open space, getting Kenny more open space in terms of him throwing on the run, in terms of him using his legs. I want to see some more of that kind of stuff implemented into our offense, because I think that can be a dangerous thing. I really do. And not that Kenny has to be like, oh, this running quarterback, but just like, especially in just moments where you can get him in open field a little bit and he has an opportunity, like, hey, if nobody's there, take off. Freaking take off, man. Let him take off. Let him use his legs. He can do it. So
Right.
Because if Pickens didn't get called for that illegal formation thing that he got called for, they would have been at the 1 or 2 yard line when Kenny ran that. So so that could have been another scoring opportunity on that. But though that specifically is what I want to see more of. Kenny Moore, not necessarily like, oh, he has to throw on the run, but getting him more in open field of where he's on the move a little bit to throw. If it's not there, take off. I want to see more of that. I want to see more of Jalen Warren getting the ball when there's some opportunity there in open field. Heck, even if you can get like we all know we want to see the deep ball more. But if you can find different opportunities in the middle of a game, whatever the defense is showing you, and you can get a guy like a Calvin Austin down the field or even a George Pickens down the field or something like that, that's always a given. But middle of the field attack for sure. I think Frymuth's a really underrated guy in that realm in terms of being able to attack the middle. So I feel like more of that, draw up some more of that. I want to see Canada draw some more things of that up. But the number one thing I want to see is just being able to run the ball efficiently. I feel like if we can run the ball efficiently, that's going to help our offense so much because I think we have 2 quality running backs. I really do. But the offensive line just has not been good in run block. It has not been able to get Najee space. It has not been able to hold up consistently to be able to give enough time. It just hasn't been there this year so far. So that's something they got to get better at. But if they can find common ground on being able to run the football, that's, I feel like, going to take our offense not to the next level, but definitely a step up. I think that's going to cause less turnovers for Kenny. I feel like the more he throws the ball, the more prone the turnovers are. And I just feel like it's just more efficient, Daniel. I really do.
Well,
So in terms of being specific, I want to see more of that drawn up.
Right. Well, the thing about that is like, I don't know what kind of play can be drawn up if the personnel is what they are. I mean, Najee Harris is getting hit. What was it? 1 point guards in the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
like
now is that because it's predictability and you have safeties coming in? I mean, I think that's a pretty good piece of that puzzle. But I think that there's reasons why this team has kind of moved slowly in essence when it comes to the playbook, the concepts, and stuff like that. I think this was Kenny Pickett's best game when it comes to the play action pass. Yeah, I thought he was consistent in it. I thought he threw it well. I thought he, when he had his back to the field and then turned around, he processed what he saw very well. You know, that was an aspect of his game that I didn't like going into this game. And one of the main reasons was when you're doing play action pass and you're turning around, you have to process information a lot quicker because you've had your back to the, to the defense for some time. And, I thought that was maybe one of his struggles up to this point, the processing of the field. And in this game, he was able to do so. But one of the things that I had seen was, one, the Steelers when they went into under the center, when Kenny Pickett was under the center, it was always either a run or a play action pass. And I think there ended up being somewhere around like 6 play action passes. Yeah. And I want to say like 3 or 4 were under the center. When I noticed those plays is as Kenny was about to snap the ball, the safety, whether it was his job or not, was crashing down into the line. So they may have shown like 7, 8 people in the box, but by that time the ball was snapped. When Najee was back there was probably about 9 guys, in there, and it's going to be difficult. But so maybe that aspect needs to change, where when they do go under center, maybe perhaps throw a little bit more passing plays outside of just the play action pass. Now, the fact that they showed that they can throw the play action pass and be effective, they got a touchdown. That's how they hit Pat Freiermuth in the end zone. Maybe that'll get defenses to respect and honor the possibility that it could be a play action and go over your head. And maybe at that point, Najee will have some more lanes to run. But I think that it probably boils down to the new pieces on the line and the process or the development of your quarterback.
For sure.
He's a little bit, the offensive line has been all over the place for the last couple of years. It's been a lot of pieces being brought in, cut, the whole 9 yards. In fact, we're going to see one of our failed, this Sunday in Kendrick Green. He's starting for the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
But, And then there's the quarterback situation. I think that I don't know about college football. What kind of defenses are there in the ACC? What kind of defenses did he see? Did he go up against? Are you familiar?
To be honest with you, I don't even watch Pitt football.
Mm-hmm.
I barely watch Kenny in college.
Yeah. Well, I was just
I
wondering
only
if you were
watched him
familiar
in a
with the
couple big
conference.
games. Yeah, I only watched him a
Yeah.
couple big games. His last year in college, that was really about it.
Gotcha. Because I was just wondering if, maybe perhaps there's certain aspects of what wasn't being utilized in his certain division of college. That's like, for instance, one of the reasons why most NFLs don't go pick up small college quarterbacks, because they're really not, they have to learn an NFL scheme while playing an NFL team. It takes a little while for that to happen.
Yeah.
But you have his process, and you don't want to. I don't think you can open it up too fast with Kenny. I know it's been frustrating up to this point with how much of the playbook they've opened up to him, but I think it's the proper amount for what he can handle. Because if we overfill his plate and he gets antsy out there, it's going to be a lot of what we saw week 1 and week 2. So, I kind of like I don't like where it's going because of how slow it is. But for him and in this situation, I think it's got to be this way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I understand, man. And, there's been situations in the NFL over the years, and I can honestly bring up teams and quarterbacks that are kind of resemblant to it. But there's been many times, where there's been quarterbacks that have turned into solid players, guys that quarterbacks that you can win with. But it took them a little bit to get, whether if it's different coaching, if it's sticking with a coach for a little bit of time, surrounding him with talent, building up a line, whatever the case is. But there's a variety throughout over the last 10 years that you can look at and see, okay, year 1, year 2 was like, but year 3, year 4 was really hot, and they've turned into something. And it could be a situation with Kenny, like what you were saying, some different things in college, and then there's some different things he's seeing in the NFL. And maybe it's something that he has to really get acclimated to and start to get more in depth with. It could be something in the sense of whether it's just different coaching, whether if they end up bringing in new coaching, like, I don't know, like, I'm not even going to throw out future stuff because nobody knows what's going to happen after the season. But in terms of right now, in terms of what we've seen his first year and what we've seen now, it could be something along those lines, kind of what you were saying, of what he's kind of been seeing the NFL is a little more foreign, maybe, and trying to get really fully grounded into that. It could be like what you said, maybe there was just asking him to do too many things. It still could be maybe a coaching thing, just not being on the same page a lot, because they have surrounded him with talent. We know the offensive line struggling as well. But we don't really always know what goes behind closed doors. We don't always know what's being talked about and what's trying to be worked out versus what's not. But I'm a big proponent.
I got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
It was brought up, questions were asked about Kenny Pickett this week and last week, if he's allowed to audible and change plays at the line of scrimmage. And I think it was told him that, he can, like, he had a run pass option where he could have either handed the ball off and or thrown the ball, play option. It wasn't like a RPO during the play. It was, all right, we have a running play if they give us this look, and a passing play if they give us this look, right? But that's not really like an audible where you're changing, routes and things like that based on what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that's because Matt Canada doesn't have those in his playbook or arsenal? Or do you think why do you
it's just kind of funny like the way you put it.
I mean, Why do you? I don't know what else to say, but like, why
Yeah,
do you think? I mean, is it Matt Canada's choice not to do it? Is it
yeah,
Tomlin's choice not to give it to him? Is it
yeah.
an inability by Kenny Pickett? What do you think?
I don't know, dude. Like, I feel like we've seen a little bit last year, and there was a couple times in the Browns game too when you looked at stuff and you're like, man, dude, that really could have been switched up. Like, if they recognized whether it was the cornerback coming up, knowing that they were gonna run a certain way, or whether it was a certain safety moving around. Like, I don't know. That there were a couple things you can look back and watch that I saw people put out, and it made you think, okay, why wasn't that switched? Why wasn't that changed? Like, you had to have noticed that because they were doing that multiple times. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's something that because like wouldn't you think that as the defense is showing that multiple times that you're gonna opt out of that and say, okay, they're showing this cornerback, this cornerback's coming up right here, we're gonna do whatever the heck it is, right?
Hmm.
You're gonna switch into something else. So wouldn't you think the many times that Cleveland would do that, that they would try to do something else to exploit what they're showing, and they didn't. They kept on running the same thing. It was a running play, and I don't know why, like, Kenny wouldn't be able to do that at least in certain situations. I don't know why that they wouldn't have a backup plan with certain plays, that Canada, like, wouldn't have in his playbook. Um, I don't know if they're just inept and they're just not recognizing it. Like, I don't really have an answer for that because we haven't really seen, too many times where we've seen, like, calls changed at the line a lot.
Hmm.
So I don't really have an answer. Maybe it's a mixture of both. Maybe it's
Yeah.
something of where, okay, we're gonna keep it like this, or maybe it's something of where maybe Kenny just doesn't feel good about switching it to something else. Like, I really don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer right now. Maybe if we start seeing it more, then maybe we might start to have a little bit more of an answer. Like, okay, it's Kenny changing at the line, he's seeing stuff, or maybe if it comes out that Canada's telling him crap to do. I don't have an answer to it, but we see it. We see it, like,
Hmm.
on the film, on the video that comes out, or people break it down, and it makes you wonder, makes you question, why aren't those things being changed? Because if the defense continuing to do the same thing, and then we're not doing anything about it, like, I don't know. Because there's no way that they don't catch on to that, that the offense doesn't see that or catch on to it. There's no way.
Right. Yeah, because there was a play, like, and specifically against the Raiders, that I realized, or I don't know. I'll just explain the play. So the Steelers had bunched to the left of Kenny Pickett, and to the right they had Calvin Austin, and to Kenny
Yeah.
Pickett's right, he was in shotgun. He had
Mhm.
Jalen Warren. The trips was Robin. What the hell's his damn name?
Robinson.
Ro- Robinson, Allen Robinson.
There you go.
You had Pat Fryermuth and you had George Pickens. Now, what they were running, and I saw this concept happen quite a bit because the Raiders were playing cover two zone and man underneath quite a bit. That was kind
Mhm.
of their deal there. Every now and then they ran zone under, but for the most part that I saw, like probably about 60 to 70% of the time it was cover two man under.
Mhm.
And the Steelers would call this trips here on the side. And what would happen is, like, one receiver would go straight up, another receiver would cross between that receiver and the third receiver, and then the third receiver would loop around the formation. So they would just go in this weird timing type of thing, right? One would go, two would go, three would loop around. And what it was intended to do was, if you had the defense in man, you would want them to crash into each other and or into one of the wide receivers. It's kind of like a little rub or pick play,
Mhm.
designed to get a specific person open. And on this specific play, you have the trips off to the left, and you have three defenders covering them. The thing is, they weren't covering them tighter press. They were off a little bit. So I can understand, I guess, the confusion, because if you're expecting zone, you're not going to have those three cover them in that particular way. You're going to have more of
Mhm.
a, you know, it don't look. So the Raiders kind of hid that they were running zone. but to the same token, they weren't pressed up. They were off for about
Hmm.
maybe 4 to 5 yards. And then on the right side of the field, obvious that they were running cover 2 zone, uh, based on their alignment. So my problem here with this play is you had a man beater concept on your left and a zone beater concept on your right.
Hmm.
If you
Right.
see the alignment just pre-snap, because the Raiders didn't really hide anything, but pre-snap, you see what is possibly zone on your left when you have a man beater. Don't you think you would automatically at the first concept that you should look at is the zone beater to your right? And like, or do you have to? I mean, that's the question that I'm curious about. Like, how much
Hmm.
freedom does he have? Like, even if he sees that this is the wrong concept, is he
Right.
forced to watch that? I don't think so. I don't think that there's that much control on him.
Yeah.
To that
I.
end, that
Yeah.
you know, and when the ball is snapped, you see the receivers start going in their different direction. Now, if it was man coverage, you would see the cornerbacks going in different directions, but
Hmm.
they don't. They stay put
Right.
exactly where they're at and just kind of backpedal, which indicated they were in a zone. This play was definitely not meant for zone. So even just at the snap, your quarterback should have noticed that and then, anticipate throwing to the zone concept that you have here. But he
Hmm.
doesn't. Kenny waits till Pat Fryermuth gets to the top of his route. He's double covered by the cornerback and Robert Spillane underneath, and he sees him and he holds him there, and then he runs out of the pocket and then throws the ball away.
Right.
And had he gone to the zone, concept, he had a wide open Calvin Austin coming open in the zone.
Hmm.
So my question is, if he doesn't see those things, like, can we trust him to change the play?
Can we what?
Can we trust him to audibilize and change the play if he doesn't recognize um, that he has a man beater concept going up against a
Mhm.
zone, scheme,
Right.
a
Right.
zone defense? That's not
Hmm.
going to work, and he follows through with that scheme until
Hmm.
the route is over. Like, it
Yeah.
was it ended up going to Pat Fryer, or was going to go to Pat Fryermuth on like a like 10 and come back in, and he stayed with it until he came back in, and it was very clear it was not going to be open from the word go, and he just stayed with them. So my question to you is, like, if he doesn't come off of that read and he doesn't understand the concept, or doesn't read the concept in that moment correctly, as an offensive, would you trust him to change the play and get the concept that he's looking correctly?
Well, I would think any team, regardless of how young your quarterback is, I feel like that they would always give a green light in terms of if there was something there that needed to be changed or wouldn't work. I don't see why any team wouldn't let their quarterback be able to modify that. Now, maybe it's
Well,
something of where maybe he wasn't even looking that way, like you said with the Calvin Austin thing.
yeah,
Maybe
he
like
never looked at him.
yeah, maybe he just already had it set in his mind, like, okay, we're gonna run this. I'm not even gonna look that way anyway.
No, I know, but I
And
mean, pre-snap to the point where, a second into the play, as a quarterback, you need to know that that concept's not going to work. Like, when I go back and watch, like, for instance, the 49ers, and there's a situation like that, Brock Purdy, snaps the ball, and if there's a concept like zone and they're running a man concept, he gets off of it and moves to the other concept across. That's the correct
Mhm.
one. And now these guys were drafted in the same draft. In fact, Kenny picked more games under his belt. Uh, I just saw those progressions move a lot quicker than what Kenny Pickett is doing. Now,
Mhm.
I don't know if he's going to be able to get to. I'm hoping the game slows down, because that's what it's all about, right? That's what
Mhm.
I'm seeing. The game's a little bit fast for him, and he's not understanding the concept. Maybe they have given him the green light, and he's just not seeing it.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't really want to make assumptions just because I don't really have the ultimate answer for it. Like,
Right. No, it makes sense.
we don't know what goes on behind the scenes, behind the closed doors and stuff, and what they sit and look at and watch. But in terms of us, when we look at it, when we look at certain plays, when we look at the tape of whatever it is we're looking at, it definitely makes you question. And it's just hard for me to get behind or believe that like he wouldn't be able to move out of that, kind of like what you were talking about. Like if he sees that it's whatever that they're trying to run is going up and like the defense is showing something completely else that that it wouldn't even be able to work against that. I don't see why that he wouldn't be able to change into whatever else that they would change into. Like I like it, that just wouldn't make sense to me. I just feel like that's common sense to let any quarterback, if there's something glaring that's really there, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to. But maybe I don't know, maybe it's just something of like he doesn't always recognize that, right? Or maybe just the
Yeah.
IQ of that, right? The IQ of those type of situations just isn't there yet. I really don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Maybe
and
as time goes
that's the
on
concern.
and we'll be able, yeah. Maybe as the season goes on, and the more there's situations like that that we can sit back and see that there's no audibling out when it probably should have been, and probably anybody can recognize when that needed to happen. Maybe we would get a little bit more of an answer in terms of what he's allowed to do versus what he's not allowed to do, because they have come out and said that he's not handcuffed, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they've said that, and the situation in that play though is not even necessarily like audibling out of that play. It's
Hmm.
changing your progression from that concept that you know isn't going to work. You know,
Uh-huh.
based on what you know the Raiders did in that moment, none of the routes were going to be open. I mean, maybe a
Hmm.
50-50 to George Pickens over the
Maybe
top,
at
but
best.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah, that was the only thing that was going to work on that play. Um, you know, all he had to do was say, "All right, you know, snap the ball. This
Right.
concept's not working. Look to the right,"
Right.
and
Right.
it should have been there. But
Right.
you know, I'm not even seeing that happen within the development of the play, which is why I'm saying I don't know necessarily Matt Canada who's you know tying his hands behind his back or the offense or Mike Tomlin who are telling him you know don't change anything, don't do this. I don't think he has any handcuffs. I think he
Hmm.
just at certain points you know he's not reading the field correctly, and that could also
Yeah.
come with experience. You know,
Yeah.
he if he wasn't you know accustomed to the different type of looks in the ACC where he was at in college, there's a good possibility that he's learning the looks on the go. You know, you do have film and things of that nature, but there are some times where he sees something and you know after the snap it changes and it's taking him a little
Yeah.
bit to realize it. But you know,
Yeah.
as experience goes on and as more times that he sees that, I think he'll get better. I'm not saying
Yeah.
he's lost hope by any means. I'm just saying that when it comes to this team offensively, um, you know, I think it's a good thing that we have the Houston Texans next, and I don't
Hmm.
remember who's after that, and then it's the
Ravens.
Ravens. That should be an easy game.
Yeah.
Um, that one's just for you,
Oh,
Zach.
man.
Uh,
Yep. He
yeah.
deserves it. We'll try to get him on the show for that one.
Yeah, let's do that. And then we got the after that. So I think by then, honestly, by the bye, I think we're gonna see a more improved, a more cleaned up Kenny Pickett. You know, the pieces are there when it comes to
Mhm.
him. You know, we saw the strength. He threw the ball 50 plus for 50 yards in the air, you know, when he hit
Yeah.
Calvin Austin. You know, the arm strength was there. There are certain plays where he's dissecting the defense and he's throwing the ball. Like there are
Yeah.
times where he reads the play right and he's looking at the right receiver, but he doesn't pull the trigger. Like I've
Right.
seen that also. So I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of facets with it, and I don't know what's that about. to be honest with you. I don't know if he's just not trusting what he sees, or maybe he sees maybe it's about Minka Fitzpatrick going against him in practice every day, and trying to throw over the middle isn't really a good idea with him there. And maybe
Maybe.
that's why he's holding it back. I don't know, but there are times where he sees something, he's read the play correctly, and he just don't let it rip. And then there's times where he sees the play, he reads the defense, he hits the zone right, and it goes for 70 to George Pickens against the Browns, or 72 to Calvin Austin because he read everything right. And there's flashes of that. It just has to be more consistent. And I think he'll get there. When it comes to the other players on the team, though, offensively, my big concern isn't really even Kenny Pickett right now. Yeah, there's concern there, but I think he'll get better over time. It's the offensive line. That to me is the biggest concern. I also think that Connor Hayward isn't. He may be regressing in my opinion as well. I don't. His blocking isn't really there. He hasn't really done much in the passing game as I would have thought. I thought he would be that X factor, and it just hasn't come to fruition. I think that the Steelers need to implement Darnell Washington in the passing game, especially in the red zone. There is
100%.
no reason to call designated plays where, hey, Kenny, you're going to throw it to Darnell Washington in the end zone, and you're going to put it 10 feet in the air, 11 feet in the air, and let him go up there and get it. That should be a 1 in 4 times when you're in the 20. You have to do that.
100%. I don't understand it either, man. I really don't. Like, they have him out there blocking and everything, which is great that he's playing a certain amount of snaps. But it's not like the guy can't catch the ball. Like, he's not like a fluent tight end in the sense of being a pass catcher. But he's somebody, especially as you're inside the 10, right? You're at the 7, stuff like that. You're telling me that you can't get him utilized in any kind of way. Like, dude, he's freaking how tall is he? 6'9", 6'8"?
6'8", 6'7", somewhere around there.
Yeah,
but
like he's a freaking tank.
And you can use him right now. I think would be the best time, and give Pat Freiermuth a break. We've seen his lack of blocking abilities in the last couple of games. This one, I didn't see anything like that. Right?
Yeah.
I didn't see any, but I was listening to DK and Ramon Foster, and they were talking about Pat Freiermuth, and since he had that collision in week 1, that he's definitely as a chest injury of some kind, whether it's a bruised rib or whatever the case may be, that he even comes out there to the point where he has trouble talking. I get he wants to be out there and stuff, but like when it comes to the blocking aspect, or maybe just a game or two, let's see what Darnell can do. Not saying that he's going to be better than Pat, but I think we need to give the guy a break a little bit, just because
I agree.
If he does have like a bruised rib or something like that, tight end position where you're expecting him to go over the top, over the middle, get hit by linebackers, get hit by safeties, in that rib area, because you're going to want him to jump up and catch the ball or extend for it. That's going to put him in harm's way. Let's see what Darnell Washington can do. I don't think he's going to be a better pass catcher or route runner than Pat Freiermuth. I don't think he has anything to worry about in that aspect, but I think they can be a pretty dominant 1-2 punch when it comes to the tight ends.
Yeah.
And I think that it just make more for the defense to worry about. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Darnell Washington just should not just be there just blocking. The thing, like what you said too, you utilize him in certain ways in the red zone, and especially that. Like, I still think you can work Darnell up in the middle of the field a little bit, just on normal drives, but especially in the red zone. I mean, heck, even if you got both of them out there, and defenses see that, and you start to put together different stuff for Washington as time goes on throughout this year, and defenses start to see that can be a 2-headed monster right there. That really can.
Yeah.
And not only that, the ball doesn't even need to go toward them, but just that defenses start to buy what you might be trying to sell with both of them out there, and you can totally do something else. But until you start to put that together, I mean, obviously it's not really something that's that's there right now, but it's something that still only 3 games in the year, but it's something that you still have time to do, that you can still,
Yeah.
like what you said, give Pat a little bit of a break, put both of them on the field. You can work the middle of the field, I think, with Washington a little bit. He's got some hands. He's not, George, even short yardage, different stuff like that, going to pick up a first down. I don't know. I think there's some different ways you can do it, but I don't think Washington should just be set aside just to be a blocker.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm excited to see if they give him the rock and, start implementing him. But,
They should.
It's definitely a total Tomlin thing to do when it comes to the rookies. If
It
he
is.
doesn't need to, if it's not an absolute need, he's gonna phase them in regardless. I think Keanu Benton should have been on the field, freeing
Absolutely.
since week 1.
Absolutely.
Maybe even Joey Porter.
Yep.
Levi Wallace is just slow.
It is. I feel like Levi throughout his career, he's just always kind of been what he is. Like, this is, I think, his 6th year now, and he's always just kind of been like, kind of like an average corner.
Right.
Get burned sometimes, but like he got, and I know Devontae Adams is a thing of himself. But Levi Wallace has given up a lot so far through 3 weeks, and Levi had a couple picks, which is great to see, obviously. He had some other good moments in coverage on Sunday night, but he still was biting the bullet, and it wasn't really that good. Hopefully he cleans it up, but it's going to come to the point where I think Porter's going to eventually start over him, but that doesn't mean you have to bench Levi Wallace or anything. Like, there's still different ways you can get him involved, but it just doesn't need to be somebody who's always outside,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really know. Like, that's always kind of been the concern this offseason, I think, for a lot of people that I've seen, was the cornerback spot. And Desmond King didn't play on Sunday night, and I still don't know why he's not playing. But I think that they have a good, like, their cornerbacks aren't great, but I think they have a good rotation of guys that they can try to figure out how to use everybody and stuff like that. But they got to get there. But Levi Wallace hasn't been cutting it. He hasn't been cutting it right now.
Yeah, one last thing that I wanted to ask you before we head out, because I got to get going here pretty soon.
Yep, hour in.
What were your thoughts on Minkah Fitzpatrick's penalty? And then your thoughts on the refs in general in this game.
Yeah. Oh, man, I'm going to say this. Being an official is not easy. I've been an official myself in basketball. It's not easy. You only have 2 sets of eyes. You have a certain area that you're looking at. And it's a lot easier to judge plays in slow motion than it is all at full speed, 100%.
Right.
But in terms of the Minkah play, it was not a good call at all. And even I forget the one official's name that they have come in the booth on that they use, that they if there's a certain call or something like that. I can't remember who it was on Sunday. But they were even saying the same thing. It wasn't a good call. And I'm sure as the officials look back at it, because Minkah didn't lead with his helmet. He let up and stuff like that. Probably at full pace, maybe the ref thought his helmet hit the quarterback's helmet and he threw it. But there wasn't like enough there, because he wasn't even diving with his head first. He wasn't putting his head first. He was still letting up. He was still straight up. But like, if you're going to hit like the quarterback and you're primarily straight up, like, you have a freaking helmet on your head, dude. It's probably bound to probably hit his helmet in some capacity. But it's not, he's not leaning forward going for a tackle and aiming with his head. He was going after Jimbo, freaking up like this, going after him, and his helmet just was kind of right there close with Jimmy's helmet. It wasn't a hard collision. It wasn't something where he was head first. And I feel like that officials probably should let up on calls like that when a player is not leading with their head, even if there's like a smudge of contact with the player's helmet. Probably is best to probably let up on the flags if a player is still straight up with their body going after the quarterback and they're not leading with their head or anything like that. I feel like that's probably what they do anyway. But you have officials out there, like it's not easy. Officials out there that do things at full time and have to make a decision at full time to throw a flag, to not throw a flag. Um, but it was still a garbage call. And it was something that it's one of those things that kind of let the Raiders back in the game. And it just sucks when stuff like that happens, because it's calls like that. It's stuff like that we've seen with roughing the passer in the NFL over the last 5-6 years that have costed teams games. And this could have been something that could have costed the Steelers a game if their defense didn't play as well as they did. So it was a bad call, and I think probably most people agree to that, unless like you're a Browns fan or a Bengals fan or something like that.
The one thing I didn't understand was, all right, you throw the penalty on Minka, but there was so many more egregious hits and hits to the face to Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
That weren't called.
Yeah, dude, Kenny was getting clobbered all night in the face mask.
Yeah. I mean,
and there was nothing.
It had repeatedly.
Yeah.
So that was my biggest problem with it.
I agree. Yeah. No, I hear you. I'd say that was probably the biggest problem too when it came to the officiating, man. But I think most people that not think obviously know that wasn't a good call. I still try to view in a perspective, like I know it's not easy, but especially just a professional level, man, like you can't get too involved like that as an official. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you know that the player's not leading with his helmet, he's not going in for a hit like that. He's going straight up. He's hitting the quarterback straight up the way he did. You don't throw that flag. You don't get involved like that, dude. That freaking costs games potentially. You don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what officials tend to do, Daniel. We see it every single week, every single year in the NFL. Officials tend to get themselves too far into a game, to control over a game, and it ends up having a crappy outcome. It happens every year. It happens every year. And that's just the thing that sucks when it comes to officiating the NFL. Because the NFL has made it a lot more difficult to play defense nowadays. They want an offensive type league, and they've made it more harder for defensive players to be able to tackle, to be able to get to the quarterback. Even cornerbacks nowadays can't do certain things they used to be able to do. And it's a more difficult process to play. I understand with the officials, some of the things that come into play, you have to make a decision right then and there. But when stuff really ultimately isn't there, probably to throw a flag on, don't freaking throw the flag. Just let it go. Just let it go.
Yeah.
Because it's probably better to let it go than it is to throw the flag on it. If it's something there that you have to second guess yourself, it's probably better just to let it go. If it's something first instinct to throw the flag, okay, it was probably warranted. But if you have to second guess yourself, it's probably better you don't throw the thing. And that's what I've learned as a basketball official in terms of blowing my whistle. Yeah. If I'm second guessing myself, it's probably better just to not call it.
Yeah, makes sense. Good rule. Good rule.
Yeah. So I don't know. NFL officiating is a disaster, but officiating all sports freaking sucks. Like it's not that there's not good officials out there. It's just sometimes with either the league or sometimes you just have bad officials. It just sucks. Umpires in baseball are too privileged. They get too much into the game, especially home plate umpires. They get way too involved and over balls and strikes, and it's freaking ridiculous. But yeah, the Minka stuff was ridiculous. And you know what? It also could have been a thing too, because Claudia says Minka's got targets back. Maybe that was a situation too, Daniel, of the officials saw that. Okay, we've seen Minka with a couple of these hits already in the year. We're going to throw the flag on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That could be another thing too.
Crap, though.
Yeah. No, it really is. It really is. I just don't understand. He's not leading with his helmet. He's going straight up for the tackle, but you still throw the flag. Okay. I don't know. I don't know. There's no accountability in sports when it comes to officiating, though. That's the thing about it.
Nah, not at all. What day are we coming back on, man? Talk about the Texans game.
We can do Saturday. I'm off on Saturday. We can do Saturday the day before. Saturday around 6 or 7 o'clock if you're good for that.
Yeah, let's try. Let's aim for Saturday morning. I think I'll be open.
Saturday morning?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we can do that.
So we're gonna check it out. Still, State of the Steelers on Saturday.
Yeah.
We'll be doing a preview show.
Yep, everybody in the chat, that's what we're going to be doing Saturday morning. Daniel will set a time. You guys will see it on his in his community section, and you guys will get notified. He'll set the time for the show Saturday, but we'll do that since that works out better for him. We'll do a preview show on the Texans game. and we'll take questions. You guys can give us your predictions. We'll give you our predictions as well. But your support, guys, always means everything. It's always good to see the same people in here. For those who are new as well, it's always good to see you guys, and always welcome and everything. So Claude, Daredevil, George, Z, Aquatic, Kels, Steelers fan. Anybody else I'm missing from the chat today? George. I think that was pretty much it in the chat today. Claude, yeah. So for all you guys who tuned in as well, that weren't in the chat, Ron as well, that weren't in the chat, we appreciate your guys' support and tuning in and listening. So next episode, guys, will be on Daniel's State of the Steelers. It's right there under his name. We will do our preview and everything. But overall, guys, Steelers got the win. Pretty good game in general. Some more positives that we like to see out of the offense. Defense showed up. Still some things there that they need to start cleaning up some of those yards that are given up. But I think that we all can sit and just kind of really hope that it continues to trend in the right direction. And that there's definitely some more positives to take away from Sunday night than there have been the first couple weeks, which is great. But hopefully this team just keeps itself going, keeps the train rolling, keeps itself on the upside trajectory. They have another opportunity this Sunday to keep things going offensively and try to find themselves as they did a little bit on Sunday. And hopefully they do that. So we will wait and see. But guys, till Saturday, Daniel and I will see you on his channel. Thank you all for your support. Enjoy the rest of your week.